As our next speaker is coming up, raise your hand if you had a cup of coffee today. Wow, look around. Get ready for the most extraordinary story about a beverage you love.
Really excited to be here. Universal greetings of peace, love, and justice. Assalamu alaikum. I'll begin at the beginning. I'm from Yemen by way of the Tenderloin in SF, by way of Brooklyn, New York, by way of Caucus, Liverpool, UK, by way of Yemen. And sometimes I have to have a map to describe my life, especially in America because we don't understand geography that well. I grew up in a small neighborhood called the Tenderloin, and the best way to describe it was by comedian Dave Chappelle, who said, "Ain't nothing tender about that place." It's a very hard place for a young boy to grow up. Lots of violence and difficulties outside of your doorstep, and I think one of the worst things in the world is when young children aren't allowed to dream and to feel that they're boxed in because of the society that they grow up in and because of circumstance. But as a young kid, I loved to read, and that was my way of escaping my reality, in particular Harry Potter. Shout out to any Harry Potter fans. Wave your wands. And as a kid, it's a pretty powerful book. And a lot of kids relate to it because they feel that maybe I don't belong in this world. Maybe like Harry Hagrid's going to come and save me. And so I grew up actually, my background was in community organizing. And my goal in life was to become a paralegal and then become a lawyer. And I made it I was a paralegal. And so I was trying to finish my undergrad degree while working as a paralegal for a nonprofit that did mostly immigration work. And on the weekends, I worked as a doorman. They called us lobby ambassadors to make us feel better. So my epiphany moment was October 1st, 2013 at 12:02 p.m. It's pretty precise, right? A friend of mine texted me about a statue of a weird Yemeni man drinking coffee next to my work. So I got up and I looked out, and this statue was the symbol of the old coffee company called the Hills Brothers. And I began to research the history of coffee. And I learned that there's an incredible history from Yemen. For those who don't know, there's actually a city, a port called Mokha. And it's the reason why we're here today. And it's a port that changed the world. There is a difference of opinion where coffee begins, in Yemen or Ethiopia. I think I'm the only Yemeni who thinks coffee begins in Ethiopia. There's no Yemenis here, which is great. As an indigenous plant, but the first people to brew coffee and to consume this amazing drink were Sufi monks who lived in the Port of Mokha. And in the 1400s, the coffee begins to enter Europe. In coffee houses in Paris and Vienna and London, ideas flourished. There were coffee houses known for musicians and some for politicians and some for philosophers. Actually, in Oxford, they called coffee houses here penny universities, because for a penny, you could buy a cup of coffee and learn something about the world. And it's an incredible history in how coffee spread and left through Yemen. And for those interested to learn more about it, there's actually a really good book that talks about the history of coffee. It's called The Monk of Mokha, and I recommend you read it. And so I fell in love with this idea, and I grew up in the Bay Area in San Francisco. And it's hard not to be someone who cares about social justice and someone who's a foodie growing up there. And so I went and I had a cup of coffee, and it was, for me, where my past and future collided at one point. As an immigrant, you sometimes feel that you're stuck between two different worlds. And so I ended up, I already know I'm going to go over a couple of minutes, but it's okay. You feel stuck between these two worlds. And so coffee was a way for me to bridge between my Yemeni roots and my American side. And so I didn't know anything about coffee. I went back to Yemen in 2014 to start this idea. And in 1875, Yemen was producing almost 60,000 coffee that was being shipped out of the Port of Mokha. And by now it's less than 10,000 tons, a huge decline. And so I went to Yemen. This is a picture of these beautiful mountain terraces, and you can see it's actually a village on the top of that mountain in the middle, and that's me trying to look like a brown Indiana Jones. But I saw an amazing, wonderful country, villages on the tops of mountains, images that we don't see often of Yemen when we think of Yemen because of what the media portrays Yemen as. And so I wanted people to see something different from my country. I took back samples from Yemen and I brought them back to learn to evaluate them. I had to become a coffee sommelier, which is another story. And I found two incredible coffees that had incredible flavor profiles. And so I went back to work with these farmers and to work as a community organizer, training them on how to produce better coffee. In the middle of this, war begins. Everything that we consume comes from somewhere, and there's a political reality to that place. And so Yemen was going through a very difficult time that's just got worse and worse. And so I was scheduled to leave to attend a coffee conference in Seattle to showcase the coffee to the world. And before I left, on March 25th, 2015, I woke up and I saw this outside of my window. Yemen went into a regional conflict that's still raging on till today. And they bombed both airports. So there was no way out for me. And I needed to leave to attend this event. And so I went to the Port of Mokha and I took this boat and I crossed the Red Sea to Djibouti, to Africa. And we hear stories of refugees from Syria or East Africa who go on these ocean journeys, but no one leaves land to go on the ocean unless you have no option. And so I took my samples, this was my getaway selfie, and made it back to the US. And the coffees were really incredible in these blind tastings. And then eventually my coffee made it through to the Port of Oakland. And now my coffee is being showcased around the world in different coffee shops. And for me, I think coffee is an incredible way to build bridges between different cultures. Last year, we were rated as the #1 coffee in the world by the Coffee Review. Thank you. But to Wale's point, my goal is to use my work as an agency, as a bridge between other people who are really empowering themselves. I was inspired by Rwanda and how coffee was used as a vehicle to move people from humanitarian aid to economic empowerment post-genocide. And so I believe that, in life, my only two advice I can give, and I don't have much advice to give, I would say that you will only become successful when your passion is greater than your fear. What is the problem that you want to solve in the world? And the amount of passion you have to have for that project is what's product or service is what's going to help you go through those hurdles in life, help you cross your oceans. Because monetary desires aren't going to help you. And the other is, if you pursue your passions, because there's a moment where your hobby, your passion is your hobby, and there's that moment of fear. Do I do this? Do I stick with my 9-to-5 job and go to law school and become a lawyer? But there's a moment when you take that leap of faith. And so a wise person told me this, and he said to me that if you pursue your passions, you'll have two options or two outcomes. Either you'll become an expert in that field and have a thriving business, or you'll become an expert in that field and lead a happy life. And so I think that, finishing my story, I wanted people to have that reaction of Yemen, to see people and children happy. And I think as consumers, my takeaway for you today is that when you buy your next cup of coffee, that you have the opportunity to uplift someone rather than exploit them. And I think that if you understood the incredible journey it takes to get your coffee to get to you, or your clothes, or your things that are made from other countries, it crosses borders and cultures and political hardships to find its way to you. And I think that coffee is a wonderful way for us to build those bridges. Thank you.
Nailed it.
She was my anchor.
We've been having a lot of fun getting to know each other in preparation for this panel. And I have to tell you, there is actually nothing more transformative than a cup of Mokhtar's coffee. It tastes of love and dates and fruit, and it's wonderful. I strongly encourage you to give yourself a chance. You are the protagonist in a book right now, written by Dave Eggers. The book is called Monk of Mokha. What is it like to have your successes and failures chronicled in book and put out into public?
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, and it's honestly awkward to see your life casually hanging on a bookshelf, you know. But Dave was a great writer, and for me, I wanted to take the opportunity to reclaim my narrative and to push something in the world that's positive. We live in such a divided time, and so even this book, you know, it made it last month on the New York Times bestseller list. You have all these like Trump books, and it's one weird anomaly. And so I wanted people from, whether you're a kid growing up and having a hard time, or someone who has a job that's not really their passion, to find yourself in these pages and maybe be inspired in some way. I hope that happens.
You showed us gorgeous pictures of Yemen. Tell us one thing that we probably don't know about Yemen that you want everyone to know.
Some of the most hospitable and warmest people you'll ever meet. We would go to villages, and this was the first time I would show up, they would line up one person from each household, and they would do a lottery system to see who gets to host me. Just unbelievable hospitality and warmth, and I'm just happy to be able to use coffee as a way to bridge between us.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
You ready?